This is TWiT.
This is really interesting. So another thing that happened, it happened after Dorsey leaving. I wonder if this is Agrawal's first move. No, I think they ban sharing private images and videos without consent.
I did a lot of interviews about this.
Yeah, what does that mean?
What they're trying to do, I think it's just a badly written policy with a good intent. And a lot of us came on quickly and said, whoa, unintended consequences, watch out. The policy is trying to say we're trying to fight harassment. One of the ways people harass each other is by putting up addresses, and they already say you can't do that, and phone numbers.
No doxing, no doxing.
Right. Another way they say is that we put up photos people don't want. And so what they're saying is if somebody comes to us and says, Jarvis put up a photo of Leo Laporte picking his nose, and Leo says, I'm fed up with this guy, Jarvis. He harasses me all the time. He knows I have a nose job. He knows how sensitive I am about this. And it's you can't understand how bad it is, but it's bad. And I didn't give my permission. So under this rule, because you didn't give permission for the photo to be up, Twitter can say, we'll take it down. Oh, I got a nose. I got a schnoz. We'll compare here.
No, but unfortunately in this analogy, I'm a public figure who they're explicitly exempt. But let's say I weren't a public figure.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Well, you're not fully exempt either. And so the problem is there's this broad statement which Twitter can use in the future if you come to them to say that photos without permission aren't allowed. But that statement alone is really, really troubling. Because do I have to go and get the permission of everybody I take a picture of in Central Park?
Yes. Yes. What's wrong with that?
They have to complain first. So they
have to complain first.
Let's say you took a picture of people in Central Park, and let's say I was skipping work that day, and I see myself in your picture. I'm like, oh, mother plucker. So I come after you and I say, hey, Jeff,
you skip?
Take that down.
Stacey, you skip? Oh, you skip going to work. I thought you were skipping as in hop and skipping. No.
Oh, I do also skip.
That would be embarrassing. That'd be more embarrassing, Stacey, if you were caught skipping.
So you could, as a private individual,
skip on this program, Jeff.
Let's stay on track here. As a private individual, you would say, I don't want you to have.
Then I would email Jeff/Twitter and I would say, hey, this photo of me is online and I don't want it. And Jeff would have to take it down.
I think it's primarily.
But if I never saw it.
It's primarily about harassment, say revenge porn, things like that.
Right, but it has implications for journalism. And what if here's the argument people make. So if one of the cops who murdered George Floyd said, I'm a private individual right now, as he was doing it, he was, and I didn't give permission to that photo and take it down. That's what people were fearing. The head of Reuters, of the New York, of the White House Press Photographers Association complained about just that on Twitter, saying, whoa, this is going to have an impact on journalism, on newsmakers doing things. And it's going to be used by cops to say, I'm a private individual, take that down.
Well, but are cops a private individual if a cop's doing something in public as
not in their
part
public
of his
capacity?
Job? Right. He's not a private individual. So I think
public in the case of Twitter doesn't mean government. Public means
we don't know what it means. We don't know what it means.
It's a badly written policy.
Yeah.
So I don't think the policy is ill-intended. I don't think it's a problem in itself, but it can be misinterpreted. It can cause confusion. It needs a lot of clarification. And a lot of people.
What if I go to a protest? So let's say I went to the QAnon Wait for JFK thing in Dallas and I took pictures of people there and I posted it and I was like, hey, this is,
nuts.
Well, the only reason I would post a picture of someone in that situation, I'd be like, hey, it's the Q shaman guy. He's hanging out here. I thought he was in jail.
I don't think this is so bad, honestly.
Well, I think the problem is it's turning into a judgment call for Twitter. It's not as black and white.
Any moderation.
It's the wrong judgment.
Yeah.
Yes,
any
it is.
Moderation.
And you're quite right. But the judgment is not what the judgment should be. The judgment should be, is this harassment or not? Instead, the judgment is this public or private or not? And that's what's going to get into trouble with things like newsmaking. Now, to Stacey's point, your point, Stacey, I'll give you an example where that's the case. What if you go to a demonstration that has a lot of undocumented immigrants who are, this happened at Northwestern University, where the paper took photos on campus of people in a demonstration. Well, and some of them said, whoa, that's going to
Let me read. Maybe you haven't read the actual policy. This policy is not applicable to media featuring public figures or individuals when media and accompanying tweet text are shared in the public interest or add value to the public discourse.
Right. So they've got to make a judgment about that. And I think I'd rather have them make
that
a
exempts
about harassment.
the George Floyd video. That exempts a lot of things.
Well, when does it become in the public interest? That's the issue.
Well, I think all journalism
pictures.
No, I think all journalism would be add value to the public discourse or in the public interest would qualify.
The 17-year-old young woman who took the video of George Floyd was not a journalist.
She's not a journalist.
Was not media. That's the point. So at that moment, some moderator says, "Well, look at this. Look at the rules. Not a public figure. Not give permission. It's off."
I think this is clear enough that a moderator understands that if it's harassment, it should go down. It should go down. I mean, that's what they're trying. That's what they're saying.
What the policy should be written as. That's my point.
If the purpose of dissemination of private images of public figures or individuals who are part of a public conversation is to harass, intimidate, or use fear to silence them, we may remove the content in line with our policy against abusive behavior.
Right, but above it just says outright that photos without permission are not to be on Twitter. That's the problem. That statement then will get misinterpreted in all kinds of ways because that's the line of it's on the bullets of this is not allowed. Photos without permission not allowed. Period. And other things will fall out from that. The caveat should be there.
Yeah,
I think this is.
It's fixable.
What's that?
It's fixable.
What's that button you have? The moral panic button. I think this is moral panic.
Dang it! It's not here at the studio.
Look, you chased Stacey away. I don't think this. I think you're presuming there's problems ahead of time.
Well, what does everybody complain about the internet do all the time? Is what can happen.
I think
this is the time to have that discussion.
I think this is well designed actually, and is pretty clear in its intent. And obviously, it's not a legal document. It's not a contract.
Right.
It's just an expression of what their intent is in terms of moderation. And I think that it will be done properly. If it's not, then people can bring it up. But I think this is exactly right, that if it's shared in the public interest or adds value to public discourse, we'll allow it. If it's done to harass people, we will not. Here, let's bring up as an example, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or Lauren Boebert calling Ilhan Omar a terrorist.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they're both public figures. It is probably not shared in the public interest or adding value to the public discourse. It's probably intended to be harassment. I think Twitter, there's enough room in here that Twitter can make a judgment call. They're going to have to. If you want something that's written so tightly that there's no judgment involved, I think you're out of luck. I
want judgment. I want judgment. I just want it that's relevant to the point, which is harassment. Rather than having that blanket
about that. I understand the bullet point's there, but the bullet point is not the legal, like a legal contract. It has
get used that way. I guarantee you, cops are going to use it that way.
Well, then Twitter has the right to say no. It's because look, it's shared in the public interest,
right?
And it's not to harass you. It's because you murdered somebody.
Here's another example. So let's take a picture. Let's take a screenshot of the three of us.
Okay.
Or Stacey, if she's back, the four of us.
I'm back. I had to open the door for my dog.
I'm going to read on. Wait a minute. We recognize there are instances where account holders may share images or videos of private individuals in an effort to help someone involved in a crisis situation, such as in the this is specifically written for George Floyd, such as in the aftermath of a violent event or part of a newsworthy event due to public interest value, and this might outweigh the safety risks to a person.
That's a judgment.
We will always try to assess the context in which the content is shared, and in such cases, we may allow the images or videos to remain on the service. I think this is actually quite well written, and I think it's appropriate. And I don't think there's a reason to be.
Right.
I don't think.
I just think we just disagree about the execution.
I don't think there's I don't think there's a reason to fear this. I think this is. Look, we keep saying we want Twitter to do something about this stuff. Mm-hmm. They do something, and now we equivocate and quibble
because we want clarity. And so Kathy Gillis, I think, was great about this. By the way, we should have her on the show. She's great. I'm trying to find her. I can't find her thread because she went on about Section 230 today.
Denise Howard.
I'm not alone in this. There were a lot of people who raised the same issues, which means that it wasn't clear enough, and it just needs to be clear. That's all. It's not a big deal. I had a New York Post reporter call me today wanting to find, this came a day after Jack left. This means something. I said, no, it doesn't. And they wanted to find it was a whole big thing. I said, no, it doesn't. Relax. Yeah. It's just that some of us are saying there could be unintended consequences.
I think it's quite clear.
Time to look out for
I disagree. For instance, we would take into consideration whether the image is publicly available and or is being covered by mainstream traditional media, or if a particular image and the accompanying tweet text adds value to the public discourse, is being shared in the public interest, or is relevant to the community. I think this is fairly clear about their intent, and I think their intent is 100% right on. Now, let's wait and see what happens, but I think it's much more likely that they're just not going to enforce it than that they're going to enforce it poorly. I think that much more likely this is lip service. Because,
right, and so then you're going to have people on the right coming after them and saying, I asked them to take down that photo, making fun of me, and they wouldn't do it. And they're going to find themselves.
I think there's enough places in this copy where they could say, no, read line 50. It says in the public interest. I don't see this being a problem. Now,
so we disagree there.
We'll wait and see, but
it's not a big disagreement here.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a bad policy. I think it's badly executed.
I'm really glad they did this. We've been wanting Twitter to take a stand on this because up to now they don't. And they take pictures. I'm a public figure, so I accept that. But they take pictures of my family and post them, and I can't get them down. So now I have a foothold to get them down. I think that's a good thing.
Nice. Denise Howell summarized it on Twitter. In general, under U.S. law, an individual's reasonable expectation of privacy when out and about in a public place is low. Will that factor into Twitter's analysis of what constitutes consent? This remains to be seen, but it sounds like Twitter has something more explicit in mind.
I think so. I would submit that Twitter doesn't want to be the place where you post pictures of kids fighting in school.
Yeah.
They don't want to be. Admittedly, that stuff's legal. You're in a public place.
Yeah.
That doesn't violate law, but
Twitter
they want
doesn't want to be a
higher
cesspool.
standard. They don't want to be a cesspool.
Yeah.
If I were Tom Brady, I would definitely want this taken down. So, I mean, no, see, he can't because he's a public figure, right? And this is newsworthy or not. I don't know.